Laura Pepperwood from the Right Life magazine, and today I am super excited to be talking with Rachelle Gardner. Rachelle Gardner is a literary agent with Books and Such Literary Agency, representing both fiction and non-fiction. Rachelle shares information with writers both at conferences and on her very popular blog, rachellegardner.com. And you can also find her tweeting tons of useful information on Twitter at Rachelle Gardner. Well, thanks, Rachelle, for joining us today from Colorado.
Thanks so much for having me, Laura.
So this interview is for all the writers out there who are thinking about or are perhaps in the process of pitching literary agents, of querying. And I think the interesting thing is that querying seems like such a mystical process. And we sometimes forget that there's a very nice real person at the end of this process reading our query letters. And that's what I think we should talk about today, is kind of hearing your perspective as that person on the end of the query letter, and someone who's very excited to find the next great book. So I want to hear your thoughts on what you wish all writers knew before they pitched you. And I think the most obvious first question is, and it's a very big question, but what makes a great book for you?
Wow, that's a pretty big question to start with. I'm going to back up just a little bit to what you said about what we wish writers knew. And I think that writers do know this, but tend to forget. And what I want writers to remember is that literary agents and people in publishing, their whole job and their goal in life is to find books that they love and books that they think readers are going to love, and to find new writers. We love doing that. Our job isn't keeping people out. Our job is finding the right people that we can bring in under our wing and shepherd through the process. And so for us, it's not negative, and it's not about saying no. It really is about finding someone with whom we can really connect and someone whose book that we love. So what makes a great book is going to be, obviously it's going to be different for every agent, every publisher, and every reader out there. And so we are each just looking for that special something that makes us want to keep turning pages, that either fascinates us with the fiction storytelling, whether it's the idea or just the way words are put together, or maybe it's a nonfiction concept that we just can't wait to read more about. And as you know, when you talk to people and say, what books have you read lately? Everyone's got different ones. Everyone has different favorite books. So there's a wide variety. It's never going to be any one thing.
Okay, and is that book that comes to you, do you expect it to be 100% edited or proofread, or at what stage in the process are you looking at?
I do expect people to send me what they think is their best work that is ready for publication. You should definitely have received some objective outside feedback and done any revisions and as many revisions as you felt were necessary to deliver the best manuscript possible. Some people say, yes, it should be edited. Some people say, no, that can be problematic, only because if you've had it worked over too much, then I'm not sure how much of it is your work and how much is the editor's work, which is not really a problem for that book, but it could become a problem if you do get contracted with a publisher and now the publisher wants you to do a second book. Are you able to deliver the same quality of work? Or will you go ahead and hire the same readers and the same type of editing that you did with your first one so that you are able to deliver the same quality of work? So you just want to make sure you're delivering the best manuscript that you can.
Okay, great. So you've got this super polished manuscript that you're sending off, and you've put your heart and soul into it. So you're sending the query letter along with the book, and you must see, hundreds of these query letters every single week. What are the top do's and don'ts with these query letters that come to mind?
Okay, well, I'll do some don'ts first so that we can end on the positive note. But Let's start with, don't address your letter to whom it may concern or dear agent. It's really best if you address the letter to a person so that they know you are writing to them. Don't send your letter to multiple agents at the same time where you have a whole bunch of agents in the to line. And then, of course, you're forced to say to whom it may concern or dear agent because you're sending it to 20 or 100 agents at once. So don't do that. Let's say, don't say things like, I am sure this memoir will be a huge success, or this is the next big blockbuster. You don't want to make claims like that. You just, you just want one person, that person reading it, to love your book, and they can take it from there. You don't want to say things like, my book will make readers laugh out loud. You can't tell me that. You have to show me. You have to actually make me laugh out loud, and then I'll know. And for writers who have been studying the craft for a long time, that's the whole idea of show, don't tell. Don't tell me you're going to make me laugh out loud. Just go ahead and do it. Don't say things like, all those other books on my topic are wrong, but my book gets it right. That's, not being respectful of your fellow writers. Another thing that I would say it's not a good thing to do is to say I'm a published author, or I have 5 published books, without specifying which of those books were self-published versus with a traditional house. And we do find a lot of people saying things like, I have 5 books published, all of which are on Amazon. And that doesn't give us the information that we really need. So those are just a few little don'ts on the query letter front. The main thing is, I don't like writers to get all tangled up in knots trying to meet every agent's idea of the perfect query letter. And I know if you follow agents on Twitter or read their blogs, some of them can be pretty specific and say, I like this, I don't like that. But here's the bottom line. What we want is a reasonably intelligent letter addressed to us personally that pitches the book in a way that makes us understand it, makes it sound fascinating, and makes us really want to read it. And if the book is nonfiction, then we need that query letter to also talk a little bit about the author and the platform and why the author is appropriate for that particular book. But if you try and keep it simple, just intelligent, good grammar, makes us want to read the book, those are the basics. That's the purpose of your query letter. Just boil it down, keep it simple, and be professional.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect answer. And I just have one follow-up question to that, which is, and I know you're probably going to tell me everyone's different, but how long do you think that query letter should be?
Oh gosh, typically, if you were writing a letter on paper, it would be a single page, normal, like single-spaced business letter. But some can appropriately be longer, especially if it's a nonfiction author who really needs to explain about who they are, what their credentials are, and what their platform consists of, so that the agent can get a good feel for why this author is the perfect person to be writing about this nonfiction topic. The main reason to make a letter go long is that it's nonfiction, so you're talking about platform, or there's something extra. But typically, especially if you're pitching fiction, you don't want it to be too short. You do want it to be a good size, a business letter. 3 short paragraphs, maybe an introductory paragraph, your pitch paragraph, and then a wrap-up paragraph. So I do get pitch letters that are, or query letters that are a couple of sentences. Hi Rachelle, I'm writing a book on whitewater rafting in Northern California. Are you interested? And obviously with that much information, the answer is no. There's nothing there to interest me. So it needs to be long enough to attract somebody's attention and actually create the interest, but not too long.
Okay, excellent. So Rachelle, I know you spend a lot of time at writers' conferences, and it's quite a common thing for writers to go to these conferences to meet agents in person. And I'm wondering if you have any advice for writers who do that, what should their moves be when they get to the conference? How should they try and meet with agents or interact with agents? Is that a time to pitch the book, or is that just a time to simply start the conversation at that point?
Okay, well, each conference is certainly going to have its own specifics, but the main thing, there's a couple things I like to start with. Number one is if you are introverted, or if you are shy, or if you are feeling nervous about being in that environment, try to picture your introversion or your shyness and wrap it up and leave it at the door. The best way to get the most out of a writer's conference is to get involved with other people. I find that the best way to get over nervousness when you're in a situation like that is to take the focus off of yourself, so that in your own mind you are looking at your fellow writers, and you're also maybe looking at, an editor or an agent, and you're thinking, wow, I wonder what it's like for them here today. How are they doing? Are they stressed? Are they bombarded? Here's this other writer who looks kind of nervous. What if I talked to them? How would that make them feel? And so if you're taking the focus off of yourself and starting to put yourself in the position of other people, it can really help you get over some of that nervousness. So one of the things that's most important to remember is that making friends, or at least beginning conversations and starting relationships with your fellow writers, are going to be much more valuable to you in the long run than any of those brief interactions that you may end up having with an editor or an agent. This is your tribe. These are your people, your fellow writers. And you may end up finding that 5 years, 10 years down the road, those people are your biggest support system. They may be people that help you with marketing your books. They may be people who have become bestsellers, and they can now endorse your books, give you blurbs. Really do your best to begin making friends with other writers. As far as when to pitch and when is it appropriate to talk about your book, there's 2 times that it's appropriate. Number one is if you are specifically at a pitch meeting, so you've booked a time slot and you've got 10 minutes or whatever it is to sit with an agent or an editor and pitch your book. And then the other time is when somebody asks. So if you're sitting at a meal and let's say there's an agent or an editor at that table, and everyone's just having conversation all about their dogs and everything, then that's not the time to go ahead and chime in and say, hey, I'm writing a book and here's what it's about. But if you're sitting there and an agent looks at you and goes, so you're a writer? And you go, of course. and then she says, well, what's your book about? Then of course you do it. Otherwise, unless you're asked, then you really kind of want to interact with people on a human level and get to know them. And don't just jump in and pitch when it's not an appropriate moment.
And I have a feeling you're going to have the same answer for the next question, which is about interacting with agents online. You're incredibly active on your blog and on social media. Do you ever meet any of your future authors through social media, or is that a way that you've met the authors that you represent currently?
Well, it is a process. It's not from somebody catching me on Twitter and saying, hey, I have a book about this, do you want to see it? It's not going to happen that way. If you are interacting with people online, it's just like the same rules go with all social media in any kind of professional environment. I mean, feel free to ask them a question, or do chit chat, or respond to them and say, hey, I read your blog today, it was great, or I saw that you were at a conference, how was it? Whatever, just interact like a human being, and don't pitch your book, on Twitter or Facebook or a blog or anything like that. If people who have blogs and websites, which is almost everyone, somewhere on that blog and that website, you're going to find the submission guidelines, and they'll tell you exactly how to get them. But I do have to say, I do have some clients who I took on after having interacted with them over a long period of time. So maybe they were regular visitors to my blog for a long time. We've had interaction like in the comments of my blog. Maybe I've seen them on Facebook or Twitter, and we've just chit-chatted. And at some point they send me their project. Well, now there's a huge name recognition because I've been interacting with this person for a long time. So that might definitely have an effect on, if I have 10 projects and they all look pretty good, but one of them is from somebody that I kind of feel like I know a little bit, that is going to have a little bit of an impact. And I do have a couple of clients who I did first meet through interaction online.
Okay, good. So my next question is about how long writers should query for. Obviously, it can be quite a process, quite a journey for some writers, for some authors. Do you have any advice or thoughts on how long somebody should be querying before they kind of come up with a plan B, or maybe start another book and put that one in the drawer for a while? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the query process itself does take time and energy and effort, but I would say that once your first book is done and you are now querying, that is a good time to be starting on your next book, so that you're not feeling like you're holding things up, waiting for a response. Hopefully you've got a good idea in your mind of what comes next. That puts a lot less pressure on you to get a response, get a response, get a response. You can continue that query process as you're continuing with the next step in your writing. So that you get to a certain point and maybe you haven't gotten any positive responses on that first one. At some point, you may want to go ahead and put that one away and start querying the second one, or wait until you're done with the next one and get that polished and then start working on that one. There are a lot of writers who have shopped their first book and their second book, maybe even their third book, and don't sell something until the fourth book or whatever, somewhere down the road, somewhere other than the first book. And then they go back and they look at their first book again and they go, oh wow, I totally thought I was ready and I really liked this book, but now that I go back and look at it, I have learned so much since then. I'm such a better writer now. So you never want to just put all your eggs in one basket and go, okay, there's my book, I'm done, now I've got to sell it. Always keep working on the next thing. Especially because you may end up finding that you're writing your second book or you're writing your third book, and then you're thinking, and you come up with ideas for making that first book so much better. And so now you can go back and do some tweaking on it and see if you can improve it. So the key is keep moving forward. There's, there might be time to put it away for a few years and then come back to it. It might be that you decide, well, I'm just going to self-publish it, and you can do that. There's lots of things, but don't just be querying one thing and then go, okay, well, that didn't work, I guess it's time to wrap it up. Just get started right away on whatever's next.
If not for any other reason, but just to keep you motivated and to keep remembering why you're doing this in the first place, right?
Exactly. And just to remind yourself, this is what it's about. It's about the writing, and if you really are interested in selling that first book or second book or third book, then hopefully it's about a career. It's not just about a book, and you need to be showing yourself that you can do this long term,
Fantastic. So I'd like to wrap things up, but I want to give you this opportunity to say whatever else you feel needs to be said to writers who are querying right now, who might just perhaps like to hear some, words of inspiration or motivation from you.
Well, the thing that's neat is that there are a lot of varying opportunities for writers these days. There are a lot of ways to get your work out there. A literary agent and a major publisher can definitely add tremendous value to your career as an author, but you also aren't locked in to having that be the only way to a satisfying publishing career. So there are options for you, And so I find that very encouraging. And I feel like it's a great time for writers. So as far as agents, they're really looking for they're looking for writers that fit what that particular person, what that particular agent wants or needs or thinks they can sell. So it's not personal if they're not picking you. You just are not, you're not fitting into what they need at the time or what they think they can sell. So it's a numbers game. Agents and publishers receive way more manuscripts than they can publish. So try not to take it personally and just keep moving, keep looking for what's your way to reach your readership.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Rachelle. It was so wonderful to hear your perspective and your advice. So I want to point everyone over to your blog because this only scratched the tip of the iceberg. I mean, you really have so much good information on RachelleGardner.com. And do go and follow Rachelle at Rachelle Gardner on Twitter. And your Facebook page is also Rachelle Gardner, is that right?
I think it's facebook.com/Agent Rachelle. I think.
Okay. I will find the link and put it below the video so that everyone can check you out there. All right, well, have a great rest of the day, and thanks so much again.
Thanks, Laura.
Bye.
Bye.